In 330, Saint Basil was born into a wealthy Cappadocian Greek family in Caesarea, modern-day Kayseri in Turkey. Basil was born into a saintly family. His father, Basil the Elder, was a lawyer and rhetorician, and was noted for his virtue. And his mother, Amelia of Caesarea, lived as a pious ascetic in her later life. Basil was one of 10 siblings. Along with himself, 4 of whom are commemorated as saints. Saint Macrina the Younger, who had profound influence in Basil's life. Saint Nucratius, who became a hermit and helped the poor. Saint Gregory of Nyssa, who became a prominent theologian and was himself a church father. And Saint Peter of Sebaste, who also became a hermit and helped his mother and sister establish their monastic community after the death of their father. Basil's grandparents were also notable Christian figures. His maternal grandfather was a Christian martyr, and his paternal grandmother, Macrina the Elder, was a devout woman and studied under another saint, Saint Gregory Thaumaturgus, or the Wonder Worker. From his family of martyrs, saints, and monastics, Saint Basil became one of the greatest theologians of the Christian faith, and the father of Eastern monasticism. Around 350 to 351, Saint Basil continued his studies, and during this time he met Saint Gregory of Nazianzus, and the two met up again when Basil was headed for Athens from Constantinople, and became fast friends. In Athens, Basil would also meet the future emperor, Julian the Apostate. Basil soon left Athens, and after travels around Egypt and Syria, he returned to Caesarea and practiced law and rhetoric. He continued his studies until he met Eustathius of Sebaste, a bishop who had profound influence on Basil, who abandoned his legal career and devoted himself to God. In 357, Basil traveled to Palestine, Egypt, Syria, and Mesopotamia to study ascetics and monasticism, with Eustathius of Sebaste as his mentor. Basil distributed his fortunes to the poor and needy and went into brief solitude. However, he soon realized ascetic life was not for him and was drawn to a more communal life. He and his brother Peter gathered disciples and together founded a monastic community in his family's estate. His mother and sister have formalized the monastic community. During this time, Saint Basil wrote about monastic communal life with the Rule of Saint Basil and longer rules, both becoming highly influential in the development of Eastern monastic traditions. Let the monk regard as a supreme rule the one that governs obedience, for this is the bond that unites all in one mind. No one who is obedient can be called independent, for he has no will of his own, but that of his superior. The monastic community must be united in prayer, for it is not right for each monk to pray apart from his brothers. Let them meet at the appointed hour, and with one heart and one mind, offer up their prayers together. Let them have no private possessions, but let everything be held in common, according to the examples of the apostles, so that no one may be anxious about what he has, and no one will be impoverished in the community. The monastic community must be a place where all contribute to the welfare of the others, bearing one another's burdens with a heart full of love and a spirit full of humility. In 360, a local synod was held in Constantinople. Basil was in attendance, along with Eustathius, whom he sided with alongside the Homoousians. The Homoousians had rejected the Arianism of Eunomius, who taught that the Son was not of the same essence as the Father. He believed that God's essence is defined by being unbegotten, and since the Son is begotten, he cannot share the Father's divine nature, and that the Son was a created being, entirely unlike the Father in essence, though still superior to all other creatures. He also claimed that God's nature could be fully understood by human reason. The Homoousians instead taught that the Son was like the substance of the Father, and neither the same nor different from him. But they still rejected the supporters of the Nicene Creed, who professed that the members of the Trinity were one substance. Eventually, however, Basil moved beyond the Homoousian position and emerged as a firm supporter of the Nicene Creed and the formula of Homoousius, that the Son is of the same essence as the Father. This theological shift, along with growing concerns over Eustathius's doctrinal inconsistencies and the associations with questionable groups, contributed to the rupture in their relationship. In 362, Basil was ordained a deacon by Bishop Meletios of Antioch. His own bishop, Eusebius of Caesarea, had a tense relationship with him, partly because Basil was extremely popular with the people. Many even wanted him to become bishop. This popularity caused friction between them. However, by 365, Eusebius recognized that he needed Basil as a theological ally due to his sharp intellect and spiritual authority. And so he called him back and ordained him a presbyter, appointing him as his assistant. Saint Basil and Saint Gregory Nazianzus then spent the next few years combating the Arian heresy, which was threatening to divide Cappadocian Christians. Basil and Gregory challenged Arian rhetorics to public debates, overseen by the agents of the Emperor Valens, and emerged triumphant. In 370, Eusebius died, and Basil succeeded him as Bishop of Caesarea. In his new post, Basil opened soup kitchens and distributed food to the poor. He actively worked to reform thieves and prostitutes. He encouraged his clergy to not be blinded by wealth and took care in selecting the best candidates for holy orders. Arianism was spreading quickly throughout the Christian world, and particularly in Alexandria, where it was seen by many, most familiar with it as a posing threat to church unity. Basil entered into connections with the West, and with the help of Athanasius, he tried to overcome its distrustful attitude towards Homoousians. Basil corresponded with Pope Damasus in the hope of having his aid and encouragement against triumphant Arianism. The Pope, however, cherished some degree of suspicion against the Cappadocian doctor. Saint Basil the Great died on January 1st of 379, before the factional disturbances within the Church had come to an end. He suffered from a debilitating liver disease in his final years. Although Arianism would be formally defeated at the First Council of Constantinople in 381, 2 years after his death, Basil's writings had an immense and lasting impact in the Church's doctrinal struggle. He affirmed the eternal divinity of the Son, writing, quote, "The Son is not a creature, but begotten, not made, but proceeding from the Father, not in time, but eternally." He also offered a robust defense of the divinity of the Holy Spirit, saying, quote, "To deny the Spirit a share in the divine nature is to sever the life-giving bond between us and God." The Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed of 381 reflects Basil's theological influence, especially in the line, quote, "The Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father, who with the Father and the Son is worshipped and glorified." This clause arose from St. Basil's theological framework and language, enabling the Council to condemn Arianism definitively and to affirm the full divinity of the Holy Spirit. Even centuries later, St. Basil and his writings continue to be deeply cherished by the Christian faithful, forever remembered for his monumental contributions and unwavering defense of the Orthodox faith, a faith that, without his efforts, may have been obscured or lost.